Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing well out there, and appreciate you stopping by. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great. Also, the Tobin and Leroy Show, weekdays, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You guys can subscribe there as well. We go live 4 hours a day. You guys can interact with us. So, let's get to it. So, you normally when I do recaps, especially on the road, I do not watch post-game before I come on and do the recap. I kind of just feel out how the game is. If something is newsworthy, then thereafter, sometimes I'll break in, whatever. But I was watching the game, and there was a great Panthers game last night. I'm like, I'll get to the post game when I get to the post game, and I gotta say, I thought it actually was kind of an interesting post game last night from the Heat Road locker room. Snippy, frosty. You could tell, as somebody, who has been in plenty of these press conferences with the Heat players, with Spo, interacted with these dudes, you could tell that one against the Pistons really burned their ass. Like, they did not take that loss well yesterday, which I don't think you want to. Like, you're sitting here, you're in the midst of a win streak, and you want to keep things going. And I don't know what frustrates the team more, the fact that you had a Pistons team that always seems to give the Heat troubles, that you let easily score. You just never really got into them defensively, never really made them work for anything other than Drew Smith. Obviously, Jimmy had a great game, but they were too comfortable. Malik Beasley and the rest of that team, they shot like 50% from three. And then just to get out to an 8-point lead and watch it just vanish like that. That's stunning. And I wonder if this is one of those. There's two things that I'm wondering from this Heat team with that loss. I'm wondering if it's a lesson and the Heat take it because the Heat hadn't been playing good basketball. It's been a very weird schedule where they've gotten practice time. They're going to be off today, and then they'll probably be back on the practice floor tomorrow. So it's been a weird time for the Miami Heat, where things are, a little herky-jerky with the schedule, but it can't sit well with you that you get all the way back there and then you let that lead slip away. And the players and the coaches alike were not happy with it. And they were look, they were like getting snippy with Jax yesterday. And I'm like, who the hell could get mad at Jason Jackson? Like it's one thing to be a reporter you never hear from or never see. I'm like, damn, you guys are getting after your own radio voice where you're like stonewalling them. It was you could tell that one left them with an ill feeling in their stomach when they lost that game. This was Spo after the loss.
Spo felt like the three-point shooting for them, particularly the first half, created that gap. What would you have liked a little bit more to get them uncomfortable?
To make them miss.
Okay. Which they did not. You would have been able to get out there, and they did not make them miss. We saw a Detroit team that was, at times Malik Beasley and especially Tim Hardaway Jr. in that overtime, unconscious, man. Like that was a crazy performance by them. Bam then was asked about what happened in overtime. He too, very short.
When you get up 6 in overtime, what happened there on the defensive end when you clearly had enough points possibly to put it away? What happened on those three-pointers? Just a case of them getting hot?
They made them.
Okay. All right. I just want to say as an aside, a lot of people will be jerks about this, I think, and you'll be like, that's a stupid question. It's not a stupid question. It's a fine question. You're trying to set them up to get an explanation. If you want to be short about it, you can be. And they were. And then Jimmy Butler was asked about this as well, about the loss, about if there was anything positive to take, and he was having none of that.
I know you prefer winning, but the push to get it to a reasonable game, get it to overtime, to get the lead, are there things you can garner from those moments?
No.
At all? Nothing?
We lost.
Understood.
At least Jax took the exit ramp there. You're like, all right, very good. Enough of this. We'll get to another Jimmy Butler clip here in just a second because I found it a little bit fascinating. But this is one thing I do wonder, right? So one of the things that was interesting about the Jimmy Butler noise drumming up, which is definitely the drum beat is getting louder. There's more national noise, all of that stuff. I wonder what a couple of losses in a row would do to Miami, right? Like, they're going to take on the best team in the West coming in on Friday. If they lose to OKC, and then they got a back-to-back, they got to travel to the Magic. If the Heat get in some kind of a losing streak, does the noise get through the cracks more? I think this is an easy thing to laugh at, and I think I thought it was, initially funny, right? The Heat are wearing, Jimmy's doing the orange hair, hilarious. I thought it was funny. It called for it, especially with that being a conspiracy. But then you see now yesterday he's wearing the Warriors colors. Like, so now this is going to be a Jimmy Butler bit every night. You see some of the members of Jimmy's team, like they're tweeting out Photoshops. They're all leaning into the trolling, which is fine. I am for hijinks. Okay. I like hijinks. However, how does the team feel about hijinks if the team doesn't win? Now, it's not on Jimmy. The dude literally did everything he could to win that game yesterday, including scoring with his shoe off. And this was his answer to the sneaker play. And I was like, that was one of those where I was like, oh, that one really pissed him off. And you had to wonder if this was one of those where, like, does the Stars' mind wander a little bit when that loss goes down and they aren't able to pull it out?
Jimmy, the sneaker play, is there a decision to be made about either get back on defense or get the shoe, or just playing on a sock? Is that not even an option on that play?
I got to put my shoe back on. I don't know. Maybe I should have ran down there without a shoe. I don't know. I'll take the blame for it. It makes me no difference. I like it. Put all the pressure on my side. I take it. I love it. I love all the adversity. Maybe I got to do better. Maybe I got to do more. But I hate losing. I despise losing.
There you go. Nothing to everybody's attitude towards that would speak otherwise. Definitely, I would say the most down I've heard them about a loss. Like, they were down about the Celtics loss. I mean, they certainly got their lunch handed to them, and Jimmy didn't play in that game. So there was it's always humbling losing to a team that you felt close to and now you feel very far away from. I'm trying to think this year. I mean, there was the game where afterwards, I think it was the Bucks game where Jimmy said afterwards, I asked him, like, how far do you feel like you're away? Because Spo keeps saying you're not where you want to be, and he says very far. And then the Heat get on a nice, little win streak after going up and down a little bit. They win this homestand. They win 4 straight in the building. As an aside, by the way, the Heat have not been, as a team that was very, very good on the road last year, they've now lost 3 straight on the road. I think they've lost 4 out of 5 on the road. Look at them, see. They've lost at Indy, 1 in Charlotte, loss. Yeah, so 4 out of their last 5 they've lost on the road. And the Heat overall this year, their road record is 5-7. So, like, on the aside, like, they've fixed some things at home because it was frustrating how they weren't as good at home last year. But last year they had a very good road record. They were 24-17 on the road. They had, I think, the second most road wins in the East last year. They were a very, very good road team. This year, not so much. 4 out of 5 they've lost away from Kaseya Center, and they do have, they're going to have to balance that out a little bit because they do have a good handful of road games coming up. They got a couple in Orlando. They're not far road trips, but they are road games nonetheless against, a Magic team that's dealing with some injury adversity, but is good. An Atlanta team that's playing really good basketball. A Houston team that's obviously playing really hot. So they got some tough road tests ahead, this Miami Heat team, in the aftermath after this OKC game on Friday in their building. Then they're in Orlando. They got 3 out of 4, so they got 3 days off. And it is about, you knew the Heat schedule was going to get bunched up at some point because they got to catch up with some people. But they got 3 games in 4 nights with Friday at home against OKC, going to Orlando, day off, and then they're back home to take on the Brooklyn Nets before a couple of days off, then going back to Orlando for a 3-day stint where they got in Atlanta and then in Houston Saturday, Sunday, back-to-back nights. They'll obviously get, I'm sure, a day off for Christmas in the midst of all that. But anyway, we're not here for schedule talk. I want to get more into hearing not that Jimmy Butler doesn't take all losses badly, because he can be he despises losing, and after losses is in a pissed off mood. And I would be really pissed if I lost that game too. You put up the statistics that he put up yesterday: 35 points, 19 rebounds, 10 assists, 4 steals, 1 block, and you come away empty-handed on that. That would not make me feel great. And I think the thing that's been pretty irritating for the Heat this year is, man, they've gotten some. This has been a Heat team that's been very much the collective, and they haven't necessarily gotten star performances this year. In past years, this year they've gotten star performances from Tyler, star performances by Jimmy Butler, and there's been so many of these coin flip games where they can't get it over, and it just feels like, man, so wasted that you weren't able to get that done in a game where Tyler gives you 30, Tyler gives you 33, Jimmy gives you 35. And you're not able to get over the finish line with that. I would find that severely annoying too. But I am curious to hear that mood, to almost say, like you say, put more on my plate. But when you have that and you literally did everything, it's almost like legitimately, it's almost like what more can I do? What more do you want me to do? And it's a fair question for Jimmy to ask. It is a fair question for Jimmy to ask. He is the star. And he does want, another $100+ million. But you're also kind of looking around and being like, hey, this is a game where I did everything I can do. I literally scored a basket with my shoe off. I have to get my shoe on. What, you want me to fly down there? I don't know. But yeah, man, I'm looking at this like, Jimmy, 35 points, loss. Tyler had a 40-piece the last time they played Detroit, lost that game. The game where Tyler had 27, 28, 24. They lost all those games in Phoenix. They lost that game. They lost that heartbreak. Oh my God, that was the worst loss of the season to me. The Kings lost. That one's gonna haunt me all season. That one and this one, I think, are my two. I can't believe they lost that game. Crazy. And then obviously the last Detroit game with the Spo timeout. I was like, what? But the thing with the Spo timeout one, that was such an unconscious shooting performance from Tyler. Like, that one almost felt like, man, they nearly got away with one. This one was like, all right, you guys played like bleep. Then you had a hard-fought fourth quarter. You've hard-fought. You got yourself. And then just to let that slip away like that, it was just, man, pretty displeasing. Pretty displeasing. But Jimmy sounded none too pleased. And I'm curious if the Heat, it's going to do two things, right? I think the Heat seem like they've been playing better basketball. But they got some challenges coming up. If they don't handle this challenge well, it's going to do two things. One, it's going to have the front office asking a lot of questions. And two, you wonder, how does that deal with handling the noise? What did Spo say the other day? He goes, every team has to deal with these narratives. You can't get seasick. However, it's much easier to deal with, all of the sailing when it's smooth. When the waters get a little bit choppy out there, how does that handle and how does that translate to the team handling all of that? I think last night they were disappointed with, I don't think there's any extra drama, even though there were some comments that made me go, and there were some very short answers and biting answers. I was like, oof. I would say 75% of that was just really, really disgusted that they lost that game. But then there's other parts that's going to leave into like, all right, what does Jimmy really feel about that? Bam, another game where he's low usage as hell, doesn't make the impact that he think he can make. Maybe doesn't, in some people's eyes, make the impact that he should make. I'm curious about that. That's one of those things. Like, for the Heat to be playing good basketball like that, that's why I was almost like, man, it almost would have been better off just getting the snot kicked out of you and been like, nah, one of those nights. The Pistons shot the lights out. The Heat couldn't buy a basket. Oh, well, happens in the NBA. But instead, it's like, oh, you worked all the way back there, and you were like Jonathan Taylor that week. You fumbled it right before you crossed the goal line. So instead, it stings that much more. So how are the Heat going to handle that? And, the good thing is, and the bad thing is, they got to stew in it a little bit because this is another 3-day break that they got. They're going to practice a couple more times. Maybe Spo will, maybe they'll get some reinforcements. We'll see. It'll be interesting to get an update on Nico and Pella. And then from there, we'll see how they handle this hot Thunder team that's coming in on Friday night. But I thought it was something, if the Heat fan didn't hear that last night, I thought it was something that was made the antenna raise up a little bit. I was like, all right, that was noted.